Hello, I'm taking on a challenge to beat every playable Nintendo-published game. Welcome to the next episode. The next game is Game & Watch Donkey Kong Jr. Again. Today, we are looking at another Game & Watch game based on Donkey Kong Jr. Guess they were really trying to milk this one, huh? One of the interesting things about this game was that it actually released in two different Game & Watch series, and both of these are ones we haven't talked about yet. The first release of the game was released as part of the Table Top series. This new series featured all kinds of upgrades, a new CPU, a more detailed colored screen, and even slightly better sound capabilities. The trade-off was that these things weren't really portable anymore, hence the name Tabletop. While it still had the watch functionality, perhaps this should have been more accurately named the Game & Clock, since it lacks the portability of a watch. Not much later in the year, Nintendo would also release the Game & Watch Panorama series. This was essentially the same as the Tabletop series, just with a design that made it a bit more portable. They were still pretty bulky though, so I wonder how useful these even were as portable devices. I don't know if it was due to this lack of portability, but this series didn't sell quite as well as many of the other Game & Watch games before it. In general though, we're starting to hit a point where the Game & Watch sales started to decline, so it could just be that the market was starting to lose interest. Game & Watch Donkey Kong Jr. released as part of both of these series, and as far as I can tell, both versions of the game itself are completely identical, down to the same exact ROM. Because of this, I won't be considering them as separate games, and I'm treating them both as the exact same release for the sake of this challenge. In this one, you are once again rescuing Donkey Kong from Mario. Similar to the other Donkey Kong Jr. games on the Game & Watch, Mario just sits there and stares blankly forward the whole time. At this point, I can't tell if Donkey Kong is just getting captured over and over by Mario, or if these are all just retellings of the same story. Donkey Kong is in chains again this time, however, for whatever reason, he is able to swing the lock around in front of him. Your goal in this one is to bring a key from the beginning all the way over to Donkey Kong and release him from his chains. Each time you unlock one of the chains, the next key respawns back at the beginning, and you have to make the trek back. Unlock all 4 chains, and Donkey Kong is freed and you earn a bunch of points. Like all the other Game & Watch Donkey Kong Jr. games though, Donkey Kong is immediately trapped again after this, and you have to rescue him all over again. There are 2 main sections in this game. The first of these sections is in the trees. There's a winding path you have to navigate through, which doesn't seem hard at first. However, nitpickers are flying around during this section, and as the game gets more busy, navigating through this section can get pretty difficult. There's a fruit of some kind that you can use to take out some of the nitpickers, but similar to the widescreen version, this serves more as a way to rack up points instead of clearing out enemies. Once you make it to the right side, you have to utilize falling umbrellas and floating balloons to reach Donkey Kong and unlock a chain. This section can be pretty tough. The umbrella, balloon, and lock all move out of sync with each other, which generally does give you a lot of opportunity to navigate, but the umbrellas and balloons don't always spawn, so you can get stuck in some pretty tricky situations. If you are hanging on to these when they hit either the top or the bottom, you will lose a life. You also can't move if you aren't directly lined up with another object, and trying to move when there is nothing there at all will cause you to fall to your doom. Pressing right when you aren't lined up with the lock though isn't quite as detrimental, but it does cause you to drop the key and you have to go all the way back to the start and pick it up again. One final thing you have to be careful about here is that once you unlock the chain, you aren't sent back to the start, so you have to navigate your way back to safety. If you don't have a well thought out escape route, this can really mess you up if you aren't prepared. For some reason, once you enter this section, the Can Can song from Donkey Kong Jr. returns and suddenly starts playing. It's a pretty drastic shift, and you have to hear it every time you make the trip. You can definitely tell the difference with the change in sound quality on this one. Toccata and Fugue in D minor also return from Donkey Kong Jr., and it plays every time you start the game. In general, even the sound effects are much more melodic this time around. Once again, my goal was to get to 300 points and see the lives refresh in both game modes. My first run in Game Mode A didn't go very well. I kept losing lives to the section on the right, and it took me a while to get the timing down. The run ended only after 49 points. My next run went better, but I lost my last life at 159 points. I got stuck in the corner with a ton of nitpickers flying around, and it can get really cramped down there. It didn't even seem possible to survive the situation I got stuck in. On my third one, I got so close. I was at 265 points with 2 lives still remaining. I lost my second to last life by getting stuck without an escape right on the right, and I immediately lost my last life by making a dumb mistake and jumping straight into a nitpicker the moment I respawned. Finally though, I managed to get to 300 points on my 4th run. It was getting pretty late in the day, so I decided just to end the run there and move on to Game Mode B. As seems to be the standard recently, there wasn't anything of notability added in this game mode, other than the general increase in difficulty. Fortunately, my time with Game Mode A made me much better at the game, and I made it to 300 points on my first try. With that, I had made it to 300 points in both game modes, and Game & Watch Donkey Kong Jr. for the Tabletop and Panorama screen were complete. On to the review. While I still enjoy this one, I think I was starting to get a bit tired of the Donkey Kong Jr. formula. The upgrades in hardware were nice, and I liked the stage had a bit more variety than the new widescreen version. However, sometimes I found it a bit too easy to get stuck in situations that didn't seem like there was a way out. Ultimately though, I would say it's pretty much on par with the other Game & Watch Donkey Kong Jr. games, and I gave it a 6 out of 10. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to see more of these in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss out on the next one. Also leave a like if you enjoyed it, since it'll help the channel grow and motivate me to continue this series. I hope I will see you in the next step of my quest to beat every Nintendo game.